You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
Welcome to SuperWonder Legacy, the only show that knows that Lois Lane is Lois Lane. I'm Jared. I'm here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
So today we are talking about arguably one of the DC stories that has done the most damage to DC, Superman, Wonder Woman of all time, and that is Injustice: Gods Among Us. And okay, this story is the birth of the whole if Superman is not with Lois, he becomes a dictator. And Brit, doesn't that just annoy the hell out of you? And by the way, later on this episode,
does.
we will be talking about the crisis thing because we have to talk about that. But anyway, Brit, isn't this annoying?
Very. I mean, just to even come up with such a storyline for a character that's supposed to represent, people and to be an inspiration to people, and to turn him into a villain just because he's not romantically linked to one person is ridiculous.
It is. It's really, really, really stupid. And it honestly, when they do this, it comes the problem with Injustice to start off is that it's. I'm trying to figure out how to
It's bizarre.
diplomatically say this. It's bizarre. You know what it is? Yeah, exactly. It's the Tales of the Dark Multiverse, Kingdom Come. That's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. Well, I called it Bizarro Kingdom Come. That's what I called it. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, from point to point, it follows Kingdom Come storyline. It's just the fact that everyone is completely out of character, really with no reason to be how they are. Of course, they change it to where it's more Batman is the hero, the underdog, whatever, and then Clark just turns into a total tyrant. Then you have Diana, where in Kingdom Come, Diana was more, we need the hero back, we need the leader back. This Diana was more Cersei and Maxima of, yes, let's control the world, and whoever doesn't bow down to us, then we kill them, or something like that.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, we might as well just get started on this. I was trying to get PowerPoint working, but for some reason it's not going on my thing. All right. So we're all good. So yeah, why Injustice doesn't work. So the premise of Injustice. So first off, it's basically a superhero fighting game. It was them trying to come up with an excuse to make all the superheroes fight. That's the purpose of Injustice. That's why this thing was created. Which it sounds cool. That's the thing. The story they came up with sounds interesting. The problem is, actually, no, here's the premise. So the Joker tricks Superman into killing Lois Lane and detonating a nuke that takes out Metropolis. Okay, that's cool. Superman kills the Joker, which, again, Kingdom Come did this whole thing way better.
Oh, you have Magog. Or Magog.
Yeah, we have Magog. So what happens is, and this is where it gets really bad. All right, so Superman kills the Joker. So Batman isolates himself from from Superman, which honestly is very Batman of him. So that's one character who acts consistently, as in the case of when Wonder Woman killed Maxwell Lord. So Superman decides to become a dictator, egged on by Wonder Woman, and they basically made Wonder Woman like the devil on his shoulder that's constantly like egging him on, which and I'll get into where they got that from with Wonder Woman's origin in this universe, which is so stupid.
It is very much
It
so.
is ridiculously moronic, but more on that in the later on this episode. So that's the basic premise. So with the comic tie-ins, it was basically years 1 through 5 talking about the lead up to the game, and this is where you get like all of the you see Superman really become a dictator. You get more of that Wonder Woman. You get the SuperWonder stuff, which is where we were particularly interested in refuting, because this is when, for some reason, and I'll get into this later, I have a slide that talks about this. Whenever this is the birth of the whole, if Superman and Wonder Woman are together, it leads to them losing their humanity, apparently.
Which is utter bull. Like, because first of all, one storyline that's a video game, first of all, does not dictate the characters themselves. Like, okay, Mortal Kombat, an old school game, you know, characters fighting each other, and one of the characters, Sindel, she's the mother, the queen, or of that magical world. I forgot the name of it, whatever. So she was brainwashed. That was her storyline for the longest time. You know, her origin was that she was brainwashed, and her daughter Katana saves her. She, you know, gets her memories back. They defeat Shao Kahn, and her reunite with the father, who was cursed. I think his name is Ermac, and you know, become one happy family, I guess. But with the reboot of Mortal Kombat, it's that Katana is, I think in one of the animated movies, she is like very mean. She's very like wanting to fight. She, she comes off as like a villainess. And
Yeah, she does.
And I think Liu Kang, he has to basically calm her down or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you have Sindel within the video game reboot. She is actually, they changed it to where she is actually the villain. Like, she's a gold digger. And so she used Shao Kahn to, he was, I guess, possessed by her or something like that. Or it was actually her being the puppet master of everything. And it's like, why would you change her character to be this unlikable that she is the main villain? And
Yeah.
at the same time, this storyline came out for Mortal Kombat. They did injustice with Wonder Woman being the main puppet master, you know, the female villainess that controls the big guy, you know. And it's like,
that influences him. Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So it's like, why? First, NetherRealms has always had this problem, and you you can look it up easily on Twitter X, that a lot of fans have complained about that they treat female characters really bad, and especially the stronger female characters. So yeah, Wonder Woman and Sindel are in the same position of these devil on the men's shoulder, the one that's actually the villain, and basically the men are the victims or something like that. And with Diana, it's like, if you know her character, you know that she would never do what she does in Injustice. She is the most compassionate, selfless. You know, she would be the one to tell Clark this is wrong. So for them to have her on his side, knowing that what he was doing is wrong, and accept him murdering people and stuff like that, that's why so many people would rather for her to be said to be like a Maxima or said to be Cersei in disguise or something like that because this is not Diana. And then with Tom Taylor, the writer of the tie-ins, he said that he knew that this is not the Diana, so he is writing a total different character. But at the same time, you know, even with his stuff now in canon or whatever, he writes her the same way, just like Tomasi does. So
Oh
it's kind of
boy.
like, so it's kind of like both of you just don't get her character, and you think of this, you place her in this. She's a generic warrior, but even as a warrior, she has a heart, and
Exactly. And in this she has no heart. And it got worse in Injustice 2 because and I'll talk about this later, but so when I was playing Injustice 2, the big problem I have with Injustice 2, the sequel game, is that was their opportunity to maybe go hashtag full circle with this. Because what I thought they were going to do with that game's plot is make it so all the superheroes realize they've been wrong and then reform the Justice League and become good guys again. Little did I know it was going to be the complete opposite of that, leading to the scene where Wonder Woman is doused with Scarecrow's fear toxin. And what would happen is it's revealed that she's afraid she corrupted him. And I'm like, what? But moving on. So then we also had the Comic Times. They did Injustice Year Zero, which was the prequel up until like the death of Lois Lane. It was showing where the Justice Society was. So you had that.
which
Then
is,
you
I
had
mean,
yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say that they are really trying to milk this because
Yeah.
it it really doesn't make any sense because it just makes the characters just seem like they were never heroes in the first place. Like you basically just had this one bad day when you've dealt with so many catastrophes in the world as heroes. So even not even on Earth, but all all over the universe. They've been to different dimensions and stuff like that. So for them to turn into like such like villains,
Mm-hmm.
even worse than Joker and Harley, like they were never heroes apparently in the first place. And even with trying to give the origins of Wonder Woman, it's like it still does not make any sense for her at all.
Oh, and trust me, we'll talk about that because that is one of the absolute worst things in this entire book, but we'll get on with that. Then they tied in with John Kent, and the problem with that book is it doesn't make any sense because not once in the entire Injustice saga is it mentioned that Clark met his son from another universe. So I'm like, that's why you can't throw stuff in the middle of a story.
Right. Well, Tom Taylor, what he did was he he used when he was his farewell to the book. He did two tie-ins, or it was one, and it showed like Clark having a dream, and his dream was to have a uh, Lois never died. It was, I think, Bruce that killed Joker, and he goes to Bruce goes to jail for it, while Clark is, having his happy family. Lois has they have a baby girl, and Lois becomes president, and Clark and the girl, they are basically like these. It seemed very authoritative though,
Mm-hmm.
and Diana is her Secretary of State or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and Diana is married to Bruce,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason being is because Taylor, he his influence is of course Justice League animated show,
Oh boy.
and he
Oh boy.
also he also said that um Bruce and Diana has like always had like a thing in alternate, in Elseworlds universes, and it's like, Taylor, where?
Yeah,
Like,
please tell me where, because that's not helping.
yeah, you are saying that they've had like a thing in Elseworlds where, but as you read this story, you realize that not only is his injustice um a bizarro kingdom come, but he also has Clark wear the kingdom come symbol. And then he names the girl Laura, and she's pretty much Laura from Millerverse.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I
and
think you're missing half that DNA that makes her Laura, Tom Taylor.
right. And then and for Clark's dream to be that Lois becomes president and they are like these authoritative figures, yeah, he's really off the deep end.
It doesn't work. And then you have Masters of the Universe, which is this is taking place in the bad ending of Injustice 2, where Damien's idea to bring in magic users to fight Superman. So anyway, these are all the comic tie-ins. So for Superman, the thing is, okay, so Superman's tricked into killing Lois Lane, obviously, and all that stuff. The problem with this is that there's no way that Superman automatically goes like nuts and takes over the world. And the thing is, we've had situations where, for one thing, Lois Lane has died and Superman has not necessarily gone to a dictator mode. Now, that doesn't mean he goes around and everything's hunky-dory, because as we saw with Kingdom Come 2 weeks ago, he isolated himself from Earth, and guess what? Guess who showed up, Brit, to bring him back to the world? Who
Right.
did?
Diana.
Yes, exactly. So I'm like, this whole idea about how she brings him farther from humanity, and I'm like, one of the most famous DC stories would like to testify otherwise.
But the thing is, that narrative is so xenophobic,
Mm-hmm.
and because again, they're looking at it in a superficial way of Diana is just a goddess, so she doesn't have humanity, which is like, again, you don't know the character if you say that she pushes him away from humanity, and they are gods, because even in the New 52, it's right in their very first conversation. Diana says, we're not like the gods,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, we're not mortal either. What that means is they don't want to be associated with the gods at all, because especially Diana, because she knows the dysfunction.
She knows how fickle the gods are. What I took that line as, we're not like the gods, but we're not like them, is that they don't feel like they fit in anywhere.
Exactly. They are just these unique beings that basically balance everything out. They are everything. That even though they don't fit within, and that's the thing of what Clark and Diana as characters represent, because they are the these figures of a child that feels like an outsider in school, or yeah, an immigrant or a refugee that is coming to a new world and trying to learn a different culture or something like that. That is what they represent. And to demonize that and to turn it into something like, if Clark doesn't just go rah rah America,
Well,
then
it's not only
he's
that, it's the idea that, see, the other thing about it is that to tie Clark to one human being is first off an insult to Jonathan and Martha Kent, who trained him,
exactly.
who raised him. I'm like, conveniently they're never brought up, so I'm just like, what the heck? But the other thing is like, because here's the thing: the idea of America is that, or at least the way it's supposed to be, is that immigrants come from other countries. They come here. They contribute what makes them unique to the melting pot. America's called a melting pot. Let's not forget about that. And then, but they don't like completely drop what makes them unique. They just add what makes them unique to the world, and that's what Superman does. But to say that like he shows up and he has to completely forget that he is Kryptonian, even though he's wearing a Kryptonian uniform, it makes zero sense.
Right. With and the fact that he hates his heritage, like he doesn't even want to be, like he thinks that being an alien and not being human is a burden too. Is like I said, demonized, and it's like something that's so wrong. And you have to have these mental gymnastics of, I'm just a boy from Kansas or whatever. No, you're not just a boy from Kansas. You're not just that. You rocketed, and not only that, but you are insulting your birth parents that they saved you as a baby, that they could have let you, go with the rest of Krypton, if that's, if you want to think logistically, and you wouldn't have a story, but something like that. Or the fact of, yeah, they entrusted you to, with all the knowledge of Krypton, with the legacy of, your family, whatever, and you want to ignore it. I don't know. That just seems so, like, who would do that to their own family?
It's very, it's a unique choice. It makes no sense. But I figured out the PowerPoint slide. So here we go. I'm going to re-present. For some reason, it was giving me a lot of issues. So let me go to here, and then I'll go back to the slides. Yeah, it's, and this is the problem with Superman. Well, actually, it's not the problem with the character. It's the problem with a lot of fans. And to a degree, I get it, because, and actually Sam Liu, when I talked to him about this, he was very diplomatic about it, and I really appreciated that. He was the first creative that I interviewed that I asked him about all the stuff, and he goes, hey, listen, the way to think about it is that everyone's married to the iteration of these characters that got them into comics. I mean, Brit, you and I, what really got us into comics was Superman and Wonder Woman and Kingdom Come, correct?
Right. Yeah.
So, and that's why I have a little bit of empathy for a lot of these people, because I get that was like their version of the characters, and that's totally fine. Everyone's allowed to have their own version of the characters. Everyone's allowed to ship whoever the hell they want. It's just when they take it to a certain line, when they cross a certain line and start harassing people, that's when it really gets nuts. Like when what they did to Charles freaking Soule, because they were sending him death threats just because he was hired to write a book.
Right.
It makes no sense. But to go with this, okay, so this is 3 areas that Injustice goes wrong in. And Brit, I want to get you, and Brit, feel free to tell me any other areas that you think it goes wrong. So one of the things I said, none of the Justice League characters act according to their characters. And here's the thing. This is so you're aware of like the backlash the Injustice animated movie got, right?
Right.
Now, I was watching a YouTube video where this dude, it made me subscribe to his channel. He said, actually, the Injustice movie is great because everyone acts according to their characters. Like they kill off the Flash, and he, in a very weenie way, but the guy says, would you rather have him become a stooge for Superman? Green Lantern and Shazam, they just yeet out, and it's like, would you rather have Shazam be heat visioned? Wonder Woman legit at first is on Superman's side, and then she slowly, like, that trust is eroded, so she acts according to her character. The only problem I have with the movie is that they do touch on the SuperWonder thing. It's just when they go into kiss, and then he goes, okay, it's too soon, Diana. Okay, don't worry about it. In other words, it was too like random and quick. It's like, okay, we have to touch on all these points. Have them almost kiss, and then we'll just move on.
Right. The movie, I would say, it just shows how dumb Injustice is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only like saving of the movie is that it shows really how dumb everything is. With the comic tie-ins, that is Tom Taylor. He hides behind the shield of, well, it's just an Elseworlds, or it's a video game tie-in. And so with that, people take it and run with it because obviously some people don't know the difference between Elseworlds and, the main verse,
Well,
even
it's
though,
not only that. The other thing is that people that know that difference ignore the fact that it wasn't
yeah,
just the death of Lois that made Superman go nuts. It was the nuking of a city.
right.
That's
So,
why, and I bring this in later on the slideshow, that there have been stories where Lois has been eliminated from the picture. Superman didn't turn into a freaking dictator.
right.
It
And
doesn't work. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I'm totally in agreement. It doesn't work because just everything that he was taught is tossed out the window. If you say that his only motivation is Lois, like that, he
Yeah,
was Superman before Lois. So
exactly.
how can all of a sudden his sole motivation is just her?
Yeah, and I mean this I'm gonna make an absolute statement. Normally I don't, but this one I'm 100% sure is right. Every version of Superman has him be Superman before he meets Lois Lane. Every single one. So I'm like, how is she all of a sudden become his sole motivation for being the superhero? But anyway, the other two parts where I think this story fails. The logic of some of their origins make no sense. And we'll talk about and that's the Wonder Woman one. We'll talk about that one later. But the third one, so this story could have literally been resolved in one volume had Batman not acted like a douche, honestly. Because as soon as he kills the Joker, Superman is all of a sudden persona non grata with Batman. And I get that's kind of Batman's character, as we saw when like Wonder Woman killed Maxwell Lord. But the whole thing, it's different. See, here's the thing: it was out of character for Batman when he did to Wonder Woman too, because these are these god characters. Well, actually, in this, it's even more out of character with Superman with Batman because it's established in Injustice that the contingency things are still in play because he has a contingency plan that he puts in Cyborg when they first met. So my thing is like, if you know how powerful Superman is, and you know how an emotionally traumatized Superman is, how much of a danger that is, and you're supposed to be his best friend, shouldn't you make it so he doesn't kill other people? Because he distances himself from Superman even before he announces himself as a dictator.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that it was trying to find all logic goes out the window.
Yeah,
The characters have to do the most illogical things in order for the plot to work. And that's the thing about Injustice that's really off kilter of why no one should really take this serious. Because
exactly. Go in.
with first of all, if Wonder Woman was in character, it would actually be kind of like Trinity War, or in the
Yeah.
sense of that
Mhm.
it would be Clark if he goes off the deep end or whatever, and he has a team, then that's that team. You
Mhm.
have Batman with his team. Then you have
Wonder
Wonder
Woman would
Woman.
be on Batman's side in this scenario, I think.
Yeah, she would be, or she would be basically like a referee for like staying neutral, or she would have her own team.
I mean,
Like,
that was one of my favorite parts of Superman Earth One, Superman Year One by Miller. When Wonder Woman's random appearance, Superman and Batman are about to fight, and Wonder Woman goes, "Okay, guys, let's go in your corners. Let's talk this through."
yeah, that's basically what she would do though.
Mm-hmm. That
And
is.
and for her to again go off the deep end with Clark when she knows first too, like if she's gifted by the goddess of Athena, that wisdom definitely went out the window too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
The compassion, the love, everything that makes her her was not there. You basically can say she was like the daughter of Ares or something.
See, they could have salvaged this if they had done the Zeus origin, but made it so he's the daughter of Ares. That they could have salvaged that. See, Brit, we fix DC stories all the time, and that should probably be
Exactly.
another episode where we fix injustice. But the thing about this, the other thing, and I can't. 5 minutes ago, you said that like Tom Taylor was heavily inspired by Bruce Timm. It comes across as that because, as you know, one of my problems with Wonder Bat in the Timverse is that it makes it like Wonder Woman is this rebellious girl trying to be with the bad boy. In this, she's literally a rebellious girl trying to be with the bad boy. So it kind of works. I mean, I don't mean it works as in it works. I mean, the analogy actually works.
Right. And here's the thing though, the rebellious girl being, and she's trying to go with the villain that's not even Clark. It's
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, what Taylor does when he has his dream, um Clark's whole dream thing, and it's kind of like it's so random too,
Mm-hmm.
because even within Injustice, like the that Diana, again, she doesn't have any type of interactions with Bruce to even dream up that whole thing of them being married or something like that. It does not work. You you really have to, just with this, it's a lot of contrivances that it's like you really do have to turn off your brain to get through it.
Well, and also here's the thing. Injustice spawned the whole evil Superman trend that we've seen in every movie, which
It
to a
really
degree,
has.
it really has, because it's like then you have all of a sudden the boys got greenlit. Then you have Invincible. Both really great things. Don't get me wrong. I love those two shows. It's just that's where this trend came from. I wouldn't be surprised if Snyder was also inspired by this, although arguably Snyder. Here's the thing about the Snyderverse. It did this better because you know why? It wasn't the death of Lois that itself triggered Superman to turn evil. It was the death of Superman that made Superman susceptible. It was the hang on. It was the death of Lois that made Superman susceptible to the anti-life equation, thus placing Superman under mind control. That's another way they could have salvaged this. They could have made it where it wasn't just this. It's just that made Superman susceptible to mind control. But no!
No, it's just every character, their morals, their values, their whole character personality or whatever just gets tossed out the window and over the cliff. You have just like we said, it's Kingdom Come, but in the worst way ever. And just that idea that the story also flips itself, and the main character is Batman.
Mm-hmm.
With Kingdom Come,
Big surprise.
you follow Clark and you understand why he left humanity to itself, because
Again, he didn't become a dictator. He just left humanity.
yeah, he just left it because they chose Magog over him. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
So he retired. He became a recluse.
He
But
lost faith in humanity. Really, that entire thing is like the Justice League deciding we really failed as examples if they want to go with Magog as their example.
right, and that is a much better story, and still the characters are in character. Even with Diana, she's a little hardened, more warrior, uh, going to the extremes a little bit. But the thing is, she has a purpose, though. There's a point to why she goes that far. it
Mhm.
leads up to it, and you
Mhm.
understand her frustration. You understand the feelings that she has, you know, and at least she knows that I don't want to do this, but we have to. If it's a
Mhm.
war, we have to fight. You know, with this Diana in Injustice, she's just happy go lucky. Let's kill people.
Let's
I want
murder. Speaking of Wonder Woman, as a matter of fact, I've hyped this up. Wonder Woman's completely BS. Hang on, BS origin. It's literally the exact same as regular Wonder Woman, except when she first leaves the island, she leaves without the lasso. Okay, that's interesting. She fights in World War II with Steve. Then, so they have to go back to get the lasso because they need to interrogate some people. This is when it goes completely off the rails. It's like a train crash. You can't, it's so horrible, but you can't look away. So Steve steals the lasso, shoots an Amazon. Wonder Woman shows up and goes, "Wait a second, what's going on, Steve? I thought you loved me." And she goes, "No, I love the fatherland." So Steve is a German spy. I'm saying German because I don't know if the other word will get me banned off of YouTube. So I'm
right.
trying to be really diplomatic here. So
Yeah.
it starts with an N. Let me put it to you that way. So he's one of those spies. She kills them, and it's basically like she all of a sudden now sees everyone with suspicion. The point that this falls the frick apart is that so Brit, she served on not only after this, she served on not only the JLA, but the JSA. So she served with literally the best superheroes on Earth. She was supposedly in love with Superman, who up until the Joker thing was the Superman we know and love. And not once does she decide, okay, you know what? Maybe mankind is worth saving. Maybe this isn't all of man. Because in Injustice 2, they make it out like this was her plan from the very beginning. Use Superman to subjugate man's world. And I'm watching this, and that's the first point, Britt, where I was like, I really hate this story as a fan of Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah. And that's the thing. They used the same exact storyline that they had for Sindel in Mortal Kombat was
Mm-hmm.
the same exact thing that they did for this Wonder Woman in Injustice 2. It falls all on the main female. That it was her plan all along. The men are like these victimized puppets or whatever, and you know, and to do her bidding while she's pulling the strings behind the scenes or whatever like that. But really, what this origin story was it was a cash grab, or in a sense, using the popularity of Wonder Woman, the first movie,
Yeah, because there
being
are many panels that recreate. There's a legit recreation of the No Man's Land scene.
yeah, and her being with Steve and all of that. That was and so I mean, honestly, which is kind of insulting too, but
It's insulting the Snyderverse one. I mean, they even recreate the scene when she clangs her bracelets together and it causes an Amazon to get injured. So I'm like, that's the first thing because it seems like yet another slap in the face of the Snyderverse. But
it's
it's
also just,
yeah. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I was saying, but it's also just a slap in the face because you again, Wonder Woman's movie inspired so many young girls. It raised Wonder Woman's profile as a character that she deserved. And then you
She
turn
went for,
around,
I think the movie is when she went B list to A list because obviously she was like one of the most well known comic book characters in the community that you and I are part of, but she wasn't in the public consciousness until that movie came out.
right? Well, she was, but it's not as like,
Oh yeah, not like the public. Let me put it this way: she didn't become essentially Iron Man famous in that idea.
right. People know her symbol.
Mm-hmm,
People, they reference Linda Carter's show all the time,
mm-hmm.
but that's just it. Diana Wonder Woman's franchise is just based on Linda Carter's show. but
Mm-hmm.
not her comics, not cartoon. Even with the Justice League Unlimited show, even her personality and all of that there was unlikable.
It's more Hawk
So,
Girl, honestly. And I remember you sent me that fantastic Twitter thread of someone saying, here are all the ways that that Wonder Woman's done poorly. I think we can touch on that. With that, the reason why I hate that form of Wonder Woman, ignoring the Wonder Bad part, because really it doesn't have a lot to do with the Wonder Bad part. That's a component of it. It's still an issue. The issue with it is that, for one thing, Wonder Woman is too warlike. Because yes, she is a warrior. She will be like a fighter, but they didn't show enough of the
compassionate.
yes, exactly. Because there's an entire scene where like she walks in the middle of the street and like beats up men, and I'm like, the hell is this? And they made her too much like Hawk Girl. It's like they wanted to have two Hawk Girls instead of Wonder Woman.
Well, remember they did say that they like thought
One
she
note.
was a one-dimensional character. So they tried to make her a little bit more like the stereotypical, you know, mean girl, a little bit, the spoiled mean girl princess.
When you think about it, they basically made her the way Wonder Woman was depicted in All-Star Batman and Robin.
She, yeah, she was, but at least that Diana in Millerverse, she has the right to be as how she was though, because the
And
government.
again, as you have said, you can make the argument that that was Batman's perception of her, which actually, you know what's kind of funny? Ever since you told me that, it's made me able to tolerate that book.
I mean, because Miller basically said it was in Batman's point of view. He really said that. So I'm like, oh, well, it makes sense.
And
And
and here's the thing, it's not like that's the way Wonder Woman is written in all of the books. She's written correctly in like Master Race. Even Dark Knight Strikes Again, she's written closer to her character. So I know that he knows how to write these characters.
right,
And when you explain that one scene, I'm like, okay, you know what? I get it now.
yeah. If you can say that she's written differently in each book, but in each book she is closer to her character.
Mm-hmm.
That means that yeah, this is a different perspective.
That's why I kind of want to see more of that book, to see if later on, if in the later installments, in other words, the later chapters of All Star specifically, if she got more of like the regular Wonder Woman, like maybe they go and Batman fights the Justice League. But then when like he's down, she offers him a hand up and she offers him compassion, and he's like, these people aren't like what I originally thought they were.
Well, we still have to know. I think she became a little bit softer
Mm-hmm.
when she
Laura.
had Laura.
Well, yeah, that
Well,
too. But I feel like if they also added in that like she was always kind of softer, because the way she was portrayed in All Star was more like no one deserves mercy. So at the very least, if they showed her showing Batman a little bit of mercy, I feel like that would have like redeemed that earlier part in more people's minds.
right, but still, the Millerverse, you kind of, it's like you know not to take that serious because
True.
you know it is written as kind of like it's just not to be taken serious. So if you
Exactly.
can't take Millerverse serious, I don't understand why so many people want to take a video game verse serious because
Exactly. Which
it's not.
arguably, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying that it is not the end all be all at all. It's a
The,
video game.
Yeah, and the thing is, arguably the Millerverse, here's why I like it more. The rules are consistent. It's not like these characters act one way, then all of a sudden heel turn. No, they act consistently throughout it. But more specifically, to reiterate my problems with Injustice Wonder Woman, it's the whole thing. She has served with all these paragons of mankind. She lived in man's world since World War II, I'm going to assume that after the Steve Trevor incident, she went back to Man's World. So you can't tell me that somehow she would have softened by by serving with all of these fine people. So that's why it doesn't work. So in a way, in their attempt to explain why Wonder Woman is so brutal in that universe, they made it even worse.
Yes, they not only didn't make the point, but yeah, they made it even worse as questioning it. How did she become how she became? And it really doesn't make any sense, and it's confusing because if Steve was a manipulator, if he was a killer and a spy, and she vowed like not to be tricked by a man and all of that, how did she turn into the unless they are going with the that whole stereotypical or the abused become the abuser type
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you're going for, I mean that's even more of a insult to her
Because
character.
it makes her sound like she's like vindictive and vengeful, and that's not Wonder Woman. And here's the thing:
Exactly.
before you guys put in the comments, well, this is a multiverse world, so these characters can act anyway. The way this universe is marketed as these are the characters you know and love, except for a slight change with Superman. That's it. That's the way they market Injustice. So that's why we're treating this with the same standards as the main universe. I
Because
just wanted to clarify that one little point.
yeah, because with the first game, they made it clear that Injustice World or whatever is an alternate world. That
Mm-hmm.
is that the Prime universe, they come in and they fight the Injustice counterparts or doppelgangers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then Injustice 2 and the tie-ins show the Injustice world, but you forget that the the Prime Earth heroes, you don't see them. And even with that, they have
Actually they do reference it when Black Adam is explained to Supergirl the distorted version of what happened, because he references they brought twisted versions of your cousin's greatest allies, and even a twisted version of him to overthrow the regime.
but the thing is, even with that, it shows that when Injustice Clark lost Lois,
Mm-hmm.
he became a tyrant.
Mm-hmm.
But the Prime Earth Superman, he was with Lois. So he is the hero that we all know or whatever. Honestly, to make it to have made the point, it would have been that if Prime Superman had lost well, he would have been essentially Kingdom Come Superman or something like that. Or that even if Lois was alive and he wasn't with her, that she isn't the end all be all and isn't the one that controls him like a puppy
Mm-hmm.
or like he's a rabid dog on a leash, ready to go attack
Mm-hmm.
if she's not in control of him.
Yeah, and when you think about it, that whole mindset is insulting to Superman's character specifically, because it makes it makes him seem like he's more of General Zod, and I'm like, what? He's that close to turning into a serial killer. This ain't Brightburn. I'm like, what?
That's exactly what Injustice reminds me of.
I wouldn't
Like,
be surprised if they somehow retcon that this leads to Brightburn, or if they try and link these two together.
I mean, because if still Injustice Superman, if he grew up as regular Superman with um Jonathan and Martha, Lena, Pete, went to the school, grew up and went to college and all of that, how does he turn into a dictator? That just does not make any sense with how he grew up, and you turn just evil.
Yeah,
And
because here's the thing, and this is why I love that Charles Sewell book. I reference it every single week. Hell, I have a CGC graded of it. Batman literally tells Superman, there's a reason why I've always been able to, I've always felt comfortable working with you. He's talking to the most powerful being on the planet. And he's like, no, and this is the most paranoid guy on earth. But he's like, no, I've always felt good working with you because no matter where you're from, no matter what, and this is a Superman that's not with Lois Lane, mind you, Batman says, you will always see humanity as your home team. You happen to see yourself as a dude that has fantastical powers. You will always fight for humanity. And I'm like, yeah, that's Superman.
yeah, so where in that, and yeah, where in that does that show, um when they want to say that being with Diana, he loses his humanity, where in that even gives justification for that notion?
Well,
Even
and what's kind of funny, Brit, is that literally in the New 52 Justice League books, after they first kiss, he takes her to a diner and says, "This is why I'm Superman for humanity."
right, and that's exactly what I was gonna say too. He says it. He says, "This is why I'm Superman. I fight for the Smallvilles around the world."
Yeah,
Like,
I'm like, well, this proves to me even more that they don't read the books.
when does Twitter X ever read?
Yeah, I know. It's funny. How many times, Britt, have we seen people say, okay, those people say, I'm starting reading New 52 Justice League or Superman, Wonder Woman, Charles Sewell. Oh my gosh, this is really good. And I'm
Right.
like, that's what we've been saying to you.
Yeah, all this time you've bashed it, you've, been on the bandwagon of others that have bashed it, and just recently it was one that um and the thing is, what they do on Twitter X is, especially if they have like these bigger platforms, and they are so negative for engagement. Like when they post what they like, or the positive, um they don't get as many likes in interactions. But when they're negative, it's like you have a whole bunch of people commenting, liking, retweeting.
And
And
honestly, that's why I love the SuperWonder community because, in my experience, it's all positive. Everyone's like, okay, so just look at this great photo of Superman and Wonder Woman on a date. And I'm like, okay, you know what? This is great. I love that. I don't want to complain all day.
yeah, we stay in our own, whatever we talk about. Well, me and you, we talk about our story. Um,
Which is going to be awesome, by the way.
right, well, emotionally,
Yeah.
emotional, but gonna be good. Um, Other fans, older fans like to reference pre-crisis or older post-crisis comics. Um, Newer fans, they are watching the movies and they are interested to knowing Clark and Diana's relationship, so you get recommendations or just anything like that. No, it's not perfect, and it is some bad apples,
Well, in
it
any
is.
group, there's going to be bad apples. Let's face
Right.
it.
It is, but we don't go, targeting any other fans. Like it has been a target for us. And I'll tell you, like today, all day, it has been a target. And of course, we're going to get to that,
Mm-hmm.
only for a 40-second video. And it's kind of like,
In an
well,
hour and a half movie.
it, and not only that, but it's just the fact that for us, I guess, to have the audacity And yes, we do have that, because a lot of people are different.
Hmm.
We aren't sheep. You follow the
Exactly.
herd, and, you
And
know,
I encounter that in the movies because there's apparently you're not a real DC fan unless you're excited. If you have any concerns about the direction DC movies are going under, if you don't accept it, if you're not a sheep, if you don't take your food like a good little sheep, you're not a real DC fan. What?
and what I also want to bring up too is Joshua Williamson.
Hmm.
He said that the people who are happy and like get what they want, content or whatever like that, and like how he writes, I guess, his Superman book, they praise it online, but they don't support the book financially. And it's like, okay, we have been saying this for years, so
Hmm.
it's nothing new. But when it's controversy, when it's Superman and Wonder Woman together, or anything like that, when you are basically challenging the status quo, when you are shuffling the deck or whatever like that, shaking the table, that is when people get curious and they're interested. They hate buy. As long as they're buying, they're buying, you know? So, yeah, shake the table a little bit. It's okay because you are going to get that engagement and people are going to buy. But if you keep giving them what they want, they feel like they are in control, that they don't have to support it because they know that they are going to get what they want either
Yeah,
way.
I mean, hell, this is literally the story of the new 52 after all, because DC decided, okay, sales are lagging. Let's try and revamp it. What happened to sales when the new 52 launched, Brit?
They skyrocketed. And
And particularly with like Superman and Wonder Woman.
yeah, you had this curiosity, especially with changing Clark's suit
Hmm.
to a slicker, newer
Armor.
aliens armor with a ceremonial for Krypton. You have Diana. Her costume didn't too much change. I guess her
It was
selling
the,
point,
it was the, at first it
it
was
was the
the,
silver.
yeah,
It
which
was the
I liked.
pants.
The thing I liked about the Wonder Woman costume for New 52 is that it was simple. It wasn't overly designed, it was just simple.
Yeah, and it was silver instead of gold, which honestly I don't really care either way. Um,
Again, it was more armor. That was the change. The real change that brought in with the new 52 is suddenly everyone had armor instead of spandex.
but it gave a more like a slicker type
Mhm.
look for them.
It did, and
Um,
even when she changed to that full body costume, which I liked, I didn't think it was that bad. Hell, I have the trade sign, and you can actually use that, by the way, in the Lego Supervillains game. So I love that. I love whenever I see new
52
52 like
references.
representation because I know it makes people pissed off. But I'm like, even with that, I was fine with it because I'm like, okay, this is a new version. Plus, it looked really cool. They were trying new things constantly. Hell, we got an OMAC book. When would we ever get an OMAC book? And that's what Dio said when we were talking about that episode a little while ago. He said the beauty of the new 52 is that we got to try things that we never would have been able to try. Probably because they got a massive sales boost.
Yeah, and to know that, okay, well, at least we tried. So
Mhm.
if it works, it's kind of like, oh, it's a surprise that it worked and we can keep going with it. Or well, DC has a tendency of if
To
it
pay attention
works,
to
we'll
Twitter.
yeah, and if it works, we'll screw it up. So you have
Well,
that,
it's just like
but
remember they had no idea Superman and Wonder Woman the book was gonna do as well as it did, and I'm like, and you had a solid revenue stream, and you took that away. Who runs a business like that?
right, you, I mean, they do the opposite all the time. No idea why. But yeah, you milk. I mean, even with this, you're milking injustice, which is a a terrible, terrible representation of your characters, and having the general audience who the thing that even the Dio said that people aren't reading comics.
Even
So
James Gunn said that on a podcast.
yeah, so if they aren't reading the comics, which is the source material, which is you are going to see the characters, you know, who they are supposed to be at their core, but you have other media that shows them the exact opposite, that is what people are going to believe the character is. And it's going to be hard when you try to adapt the source material the right way. It's going to be hard for people to actually invest in the character because, like Wonder Woman, they have this idea of her as this snooty, spoiled, mean princess warrior, that she is distant from humanity, that she doesn't have humanity. She's just a goddess. And, you know, or even her being from an island of women that dictates her sexuality and stuff like that. That's all they could think of as Wonder Woman because she doesn't have the right representation in other media. And then with
I mean, hell, remember in that DC documentary, this is another part we never talked about, as a matter of fact, Dio said, well, people asked me, like, who's your biggest competition? And he said, it's not Marvel, it's the people other than comics that work for Warner Bros. Because I'm competing with them to show people how these characters are supposed to be. And if people all of a sudden, if those other revenue streams, whether or not that be games in this case, whether or not that be movies or TV, if they all of a sudden become the arbiters of what these characters are, I have failed at my job.
right, and that is exactly why they had to reboot because Nolan's Batman really gave a well, you had Tim Burton's Batman, and then you had Nolan's Batman. So twice that has gained a lot of fans, that has, this big thing. And then when you come into the comics, and even though Batman did get the boost, from the movies, and he's pretty consistent throughout the time anyway, but all your other characters though, Superman, he hasn't had a successful movie franchise. Even with Man of Steel, it he was New 52 in the sense of the more outsider,
Mm-hmm.
real in a real world situation.
Yeah, the
That feel,
Snyderverse was the Snyderverse was kind of post crisis combined with
but
New
exactly,
52.
but the whole basis though of
Mm-hmm.
that was post crisis.
Yeah.
And for people to get mad on Twitter X, to get mad and hate Man of Steel and the Snyderverse, is like, okay, exactly what you want is exactly
It's
what
your
the
era.
Snyderverse.
It's
Yeah,
literally based on your era of DC. And they'll be like, Superman was never like that. Have you read Man of Steel?
yeah. So, that is of course the double standard of
Mm-hmm.
even with the Christ like allegory or whatever, the
Mm-hmm.
imagery that was burn Man of Steel, like
Mm-hmm.
the Christ figure, the basically space Jesus, you know, that is where that comes from. But Superman's, like, his whole thing is being like a Moses allegory,
Yeah.
where he he is the man of the people. So again, going back to Injustice, for this character that is supposed to be the man of the people, champion of the oppressed, how does he become the oppressor? and
It
it
doesn't
falls.
work because also the one thing we forgot to mention, we're assuming that Superman's origin is intact. Like everything else, uh, everything up until the nuke goes off is consistent with every portrayal of Superman we've seen. So what changes? But then we get to Injustice 2. And again, I think that this game is like the premise of this game is that Brainiac invades. So Batman is forced to release Superman and they have to work together. So the Justice League is essentially reformed. They had such a golden opportunity because if they had pulled what I thought they were going to do, if they were going to have all of a sudden everyone realizing, okay, you know what, we work better as a team, and they permanently reform the league, and Superman does penance and stuff. If they had somehow redeemed these characters, this could have been this could have saved the entire story, because it would have been like, okay, they had a fall because it makes them human if they fall, but work themselves back up. But no, at the end of the game, everyone just goes back to the exact same damn thing, and I'm like, what in
Right.
the? It doesn't work.
And it also just doubled down on the annoying, just awful characterization, and and then they have those ugly suits. Like the character designs are very ugly. I'm sorry, it
Well,
is.
it's like even in the movie, the Injustice movie ticked me off a little bit because the evil Superman is wearing the New 52 Superman suit. Like,
He sort of
what?
is,
I'm like, wait a second here. That's the evil Superman suit now?
because again, this movie was 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it takes about 2 years for animation. So it was 2019. It was still in the realm of, even though the Rebirth team, the initial team, was gone, you know, it was still in the realm though of New 52 is bad. So
Yeah, yeah, I kind of get that. It's just it hurts. It hurts a little bit.
yeah, so within all of Injustice, um, not just Injustice, but within that time, I mean, and well, I guess it was just the comics, animation, and video game Injustice. Yeah, New 52 whole thing, they want to demonize it. And yeah, with Clark and Diana's relationship, like ceasing to exist, romantic wise and
Mm-hmm.
platonic wise, within the comics of them, actually having that deep connection. You do only go on Injustice and how toxic and terrible that is, and how, again, yeah, it's not. And the thing is, they weren't actually together though. Like it was Diana.
Not really. It was when Injustice. Well, it was when the games show up that they all of a sudden like were together, and it's like in Injustice comics, in the Injustice 2 comics, they established, yeah, they were together, but all they do is almost kiss in a dream, in Wonder Woman's dream sequence.
Yeah, and even in her dream sequence, he's basically like what she wants him to say, but he doesn't in reality, of course. And I think he only starts really caring about her is when she uh goes into a coma. But
And remember, she wakes up when he's a yellow lantern. That alone should have been her like first clue that maybe this isn't the right decision.
yeah, and they also changed writers.
Oh yeah,
And
that's
I
true.
think that the second writer, um his name is Brian. I don't want to butcher his last name. So
Bucaleto is the way I pronounce it. His
uh,
run, okay, his 2 volumes when they started fighting the Greek gods, that was cool. I'll give him that. Credit where credit is due. That was cool.
yeah, he made Diana a little bit likable,
Mm-hmm.
and she had she has some common sense, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even with trying to have a romance, as dysfunctional as that is, he it just it made it tolerable, even though you know that you just do not like these characters at all. But
Mm-hmm.
he made it a little bit more tolerable, far more than Tom Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, Tom Taylor, he goes off on, well, this is the Elseworld, so I can write these characters how, I want. But at the same time, when it goes to him writing them, even in the main verse or whatever, especially Diana, he does not know how to write her. He does fall back
Mm-hmm.
on e- whether she is a mouthpiece for another character, or she is the stereotypical generic warrior. Even in Deceased, she Clark, he kills her because he's turned into a zombie, and she's but she somehow becomes this big bad zombie queen though. And then it's Clark that is turned back into like his normal self,
Mm-hmm.
but Diana is the one that becomes the big bad.
Well, not only that, she's killed in the sequel, like in the first issue, pretty much.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, if you say that this isn't the Diana that you know, and you are writing her as a different character, why in yet another book is she written as the big bad villain?
Which arguably, here's the thing: it's worse for him in Deceased because in Deceased, everyone is heroes. No one's in other words, the heroes act consistently, supposedly. What I mean is that there's no like evil Superman or evil Wonder Woman. This is Superman and Wonder Woman. So why are they? It doesn't. It's kind of it's annoying. Let me put it that way. It's annoying.
Yeah. And he also have in Deceased, Lois is somehow the president of when
Which,
they
of
leave.
course,
Yeah, when they leave the prime Earth or whatever, they go to another Earth or
what
planet
they call
or
Earth 2,
whatever.
by the way.
Yeah, and she becomes president, and it still doesn't make sense, but whatever.
Who would
And
elect her
then,
president? That's the thing.
right, and then you have, yeah, John's Injustice book, which is, it is because John is very much just a gimmick character.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, whether it was using his coming out as bisexual, that was a gimmick, and it was admitted by Tom Taylor that um, DC wanted it out fast as a PR, as a PR stunt, and or you have it where he was supposed to um, explore John's trauma with Ultraman, but then Injustice Superman kills him, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just an irrelevant Injustice tie-in. And the thing is with
It gets
John,
worse. It gets worse, Britt. Then they had another opportunity to salvage it. That's the thing about Tom Taylor's writing. He keeps getting opportunities to salvage it, but he doesn't take it. Where they're going to have a confrontation between John and Injustice Superman, and then he just hugs him.
yeah, but the thing is, where he places the story, it whatever it has no relevance to the Injustice world, basically.
No,
Like
absolutely not.
nothing changes. So
And then the thing is, you would think Superman would mention this to someone. Yeah, I saw my son from another Earth.
yeah, and then to say that he looks like Lois is like, no, he doesn't. He looks exactly like a carbon copy of Clark.
Mm-hmm.
So that really does not, it doesn't make sense. Like in the Crisis movie, I know Helena is a girl, so of course she, looks like Selena.
Mm-hmm.
But for Batman to say she looks like Selena, that made sense.
Mm-hmm.
But with John, he and a boy can look like his mom, so that can happen. But John is drawn as just a miniature carbon copy Clark. So that whole trying to make it seem like um John has some type of traits of Lois. Even I think Selena is used in Injustice as to say that he sounds like Lois. I'm like, well, if he sounds like a woman, that's
That's kind of stereotypical of a bisexual person. That doesn't exactly that doesn't make it better, Tom Taylor.
yeah, so they are trying to find ways to say, well, you are like your mom in some type of way, which he is not. So with honestly, there's no point of the book, of John's book at all. Uh, Nothing changes. Even Diana, she's very um. What John does with her is they fight. He I guess he pushes her, or they go all the way up in space or something like that for
Mm-hmm.
her to be um take a while to get back, but she's stronger. And he when Tom Taylor first when this was first announced and he had his interview, and he said something about like the reactions of the Injustice characters, and how, and especially he emphasized really on Diana's uh reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the way he emphasized on it is very bad.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the execution of that did not happen gladly, because you know, you're just doubling down and trying to ruin Diana's character. But John basically just says that you're not like the Wonder Woman,
Yeah,
like the regular.
what he says, if I remember correctly, is the Wonder Woman's supposed to be an ambassador of truth, justice, and peace, not whatever your Wonder Woman is.
Yeah, so that's all that John says, and then he just flies off because she was gonna beat him up anyway. Um, and then just whole Diana's, she says, how can you trust him, and trying to manipulate Clark. And she, again, you want her to be like this cold harpy, and it just doesn't make sense. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
whatever Tom Taylor is trying to milk Injustice, even in DC itself, it does not work, because you're just tearing up these characters and ruining your brand.
True.
And Injustice really needs to just like not exist anymore.
Well, yeah. And then to conclude, the last slide I'm going to put on Injustice is here's where the whole Superman becoming a dictator doesn't happen. I picked 3 of the best well-known examples. Superman not being with Lois does not lead him to a dictator, as evidenced by Kingdom Come, DC Universe Online, and the New 52. Now, with DC Universe Online, it's the idea that so Superman is manipulated into killing Lois Lane. Sound familiar? He goes off and broods for a bit, kind of like Kingdom Come, but then he just comes back and is the superhero we all know.
Is
So
this the
yeah, I'm sorry. What?
is this the this is a tie-in to the
It's
online
it's
game?
literally the prequel to the tie-in game. I mean, to the online game.
Okay, so this is the game where he um the Lex Luthor,
All right.
you can see the
Here's what happens. So what happens is Lex Luthor is manipulated by Brainiac into killing the Justice League. So at this point, Superman is off because Lois has been killed, so he's off in space. So when he kills Wonder Woman, well, actually, when he captures Wonder Woman, because he knows Wonder Woman screams is what's going to bring him back, is what's going to bring Superman back. So they kill Wonder Woman. When Superman comes back because of her screams and he cradles her, he finds out that her body has been stuffed with kryptonite, and then Lex Luthor runs a spear in his back and kills him. Then Brainiac invades and says, "You've been doing my entire plan all along." So Lex Luthor has to go back in time to the main DC universe. And the way they explain the player characters is he brings back these nanites from Brainiac, and the nanites contain like the DNA of like all the different superheroes. Hence why your character can have the like Superman's heat vision and such.
Oh, I never played the game or
It's really fun. It's really fun.
In depth. It sounds fun. Within the in depth of the comics of it. I just knew of the trailer or the commentary and the tie-in, that panel of Lex saying that I think he said that he believed that Clark and Diana, that they would get married or something like that.
Yeah,
that
he said they're always around each other. They always protect each other. It almost is like they are together.
Yeah. So, yeah, even with this, people die. He doesn't become a dictator. He just, even though even leaving off world wouldn't make sense either. That's just, it's not on the same level. But
it's different from Kingdom Come, because in Kingdom Come, it's like the people all of a sudden started acting like the
people pushed him away.
Yeah. With this, he just left, but he came back. That's the point here. He did come back to help out. And what they do in the comics to end it is that they recreate the exact scene from the trailer, except this time it's a trick. And as soon as Lex kills everyone and Brainiac invades, he goes, "Hey, I brought some reinforcements," and then everyone just rises back up, and Brainiac's like, "Wait, what?" He goes, "You've been played, Brainiac."
Wow.
Superman's like, cool. "Oh, I'm gonna tear this dude apart," because it was Brainiac who killed Lois. So Superman with the red eyes is like, "Oh, it's on, baby."
Yeah, if you want to avenge her death or whatever like that, fine. But still,
anyone would do that.
Yeah, still remain the hero that you are. Because again, his motivation is not just her. His motivation is everyone. And but the thing is, that is why I don't like the relationship, and that is why it needs to like go away for a time or permanently, because to keep this type of narrative is very harmful for the character. And
exactly. And actually, it's kind of funny. A few of the tweets that you sent me about the crisis thing that we're going to talk about immediately after this, by the way, is that one of the people was saying, because one of the criticisms of that scene was like, "Oh, this is so overplayed." And someone said, "And Superman being with Lois isn't?"
Exactly. I mean, this, honestly, that's not what we're going to talk about in a minute. But yes, with this whole the predictableness of the Lois and Clark relationship is very stagnant, because they don't have any type of challenge. They don't have any type of drama. It's just, it is what it is type thing. That's pretty much the only drama that they will have, is that Clark becomes a tyrant if Lois dies or something like that. Even in Rebirth, the fact that the drowned storyline, when he purposely let thousands drown, knowing that he could have saved them, but he took Lois to the Fortress of Solitude. thinking of her solely, thinking solely of her. Then you have
Now,
super.
real quick, I just want to interject here. That's different from the scene of Our Worlds at War when Superman has only saved Wonder Woman and left the other Justice League members in space, because he still had, like, I believe it was Aquaman at the time, and he told Arthur, "You handle that. I'll take Diana." So in other words, it wasn't
Yeah,
like he
that is
was intentionally leaving people behind.
yeah, that is totally different because yes, his focus was on Diana because the thing of why he was focused on her was because um, when the reactor went off, she like was right there when it went off.
She
So
was right on the guy.
yeah, so it was like he, everyone else, I think it was just like the backlash, like of the explosion.
Yeah,
So
and
it was like
remember, he couldn't hear her heartbeat, so as far as he knew, she was dead.
exactly. So that was a total different thing.
Mm-hmm.
This, however, is you knew that Lois was safe. It was just the fact that you took extra precaution or whatever to take her all the way to the fortress though. You didn't put her on like a high enough building with other uh people. You took her all the way to the fortress so she can be solely safe. You know that she's safe. And then letting people drown, it could have been a child that you let drown. And the thing is, what was so condescending or just weird and made it seem a little villainy was that when he was talking to Bruce about it, he, he made it seem like he was sad about it, but at the same time, but then Batman said, "It's okay, but is Lois okay?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, she's okay." It's like, okay, well, everything's okay. No, it's not okay.
She's
Thousands
not
of
the only
people,
civilian.
yeah, thousands lost their lives. Then you have recently in the Beast world, um this event or whatever of Beast World, that people are being possessed by Staros or whatever those are, turning into beasts. And
Mm-hmm.
again, he takes her all the way to the fortress for her to be the only one. And but when the fortress is being attacked or something, he is supposed to um go patrolling or go help out someone else. But even in the fortress, and he feels like she's, I guess, going to be attacked or whatever, he goes all the way to the fortress. And it's like she's supposed to be safe, or however the fortress is built is going to protect her. So why are you going all the way there when, you know, other people need you? So yeah, it's just
It doesn't
that,
work. That's the
yeah,
thing.
that relationship really is toxic. It really does it's a lot of selfishness. And with Clark and Diana's relationship with the first volume, especially when they're about to set off um
The nuke thing.
the
Mm-hmm.
nuke, is Diana asks, "Will we survive this?" And he said, "Does it matter?" And she says no. And it's like, we will sacrifice our lives to save, the world. Going, I mean, in the
Well,
middle of
even
setting
in
off a
volume
nuke.
two, even in volume two, uh, she basically tells Lois, Clark and I have a unspoken agreement that the world comes first.
Yeah. And the fact that it's unspoken, that they already know that this is what we are supposed to do.
Because
But with
it's like, should we really have to have this conversation if we're both superheroes?
right. But with Lois, it's like he gives up his powers in the Superman 2 movie. He even in the Death of Superman animated movie,
Oh
how Lois
God.
was saying to bring the cavalry, or like, you stay here with me and let the others fight. It's like, but in that
You
same,
know he's the most powerful one, who probably is a match for this dude.
yeah, but in the prior scene, Diana tells him to go fight and go win. You
And
know,
she says, do not hold back.
yeah, she tells him to go fight and do what he has to do to save the world. Lois tells him to not basically save the world and come with me, stay with me. And it's just like, okay, if you're trying to show this relationship as like this end all be all, this romantic type, you know, you are doing a terrible job at it.
Exactly.
Because
It's not romantic.
no, being selfish like that and risking other people, and then the fact of knowing that, again, Clark, he demonized, or his heritage is demonized for Lois. It's a burden. Um, then you have it where it is your humanity and being human. And the thing is, I just can't stand is when they say that they aren't human. No, they aren't human. Clark is
Mm-hmm.
an alien. Diana is an Earth woman. She is human. The Amazons are human. They are reincarnation of women, Earth women, who were abused over the centuries. Just because it's a little mythical doesn't change the fact that they are human women with souls and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
They, you know, and they're just on an island. That's it. They still are on Earth. They're just on a secluded island, which in reality, we have secluded islands, so it's in
Everywhere. There are places that haven't been touched by civilization.
yeah, or there's secret tribes,
Mm-hmm.
all around the world. And for people not to think outside the box and put, even though this is fiction, it still has that. When you do fiction, it comes from reality. It does. You just are creative and imaginative to, you know, have these people have superpowers or something like that. But even Grant Morrison, he said that Superman is he's supposed to live normal life on an extraordinary level and like Paul Bunyan.
Mm-hmm.
So Clark, he walks his dog, but his dog is an alien dog and he can walk him in outer space. If he sees his family or whatever like that, his family, well, he's at the Legion from the 31st century.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
even with Clark and Diana, and we saw that from the first volume. Your boyfriend meets your family,
Yeah, that was
meets your
hilarious.
brother.
That was the best part of the book, really, is when he goes, "You don't know that much about me, do you, God of the Sun?"
Right. Your boyfriend meets your brother and they get into a fight. That's what families do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Clark and Anna, they went club dancing at a London club. They can fly from Metropolis to London in, overnight to go to a club or something like that. Just just things like that. That's what bring the realism and the fantastical together in a more natural way. But when you try to ground these characters in a sense of, and the thing is about the grounding thing too. Clark never needed grounding. He's very
No.
humble, but he is not the character to ground because he represents a free bird or an eagle or something like that
Mm-hmm.
because he flies. Why do these people or Twitter X or they have these superficial views of these characters that is so easy to understand deeply. But I blame DC because the writers that they have wanted to be a little bit more simplified for them because they are lacking the creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, I understand, being on a deadline, you want to get the comic issues out and everything like that. But at the same time, firstly, don't overhype your story because when the
You'll just
final,
end up putting way too much pressure on you in that case.
yeah, and the final product is very mediocre, and that is DC's problem now
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the stories that they have now are very mediocre and but they've been hyped up.
Exactly. Now, speaking of hyped up, all right. So now we're gonna move to the Crisis on Infinite Earths movie. And okay, so I knew this movie was coming out, but here's the thing. But inevitably, these DC movies leak out. So to tell you guys the story, I was just hanging out. Brit and I were going back and forth on Twitter X, whatever the hell Elon's going to call it, complaining about people on Twitter, complaining about SuperWonder and stuff. So I said, oh, don't worry, we'll get our moment. Literally an hour later, Taladia DMs me and goes, oh, yeah, dude, I watched the movie and Earth 2, Superman, and Wonder Woman are together. And I was like, I texted Brit and she's like, don't play with me, Jared. Don't play with me.
I sure did.
We were like, there's no way. And then when she sends me these screenshots, I'm like, what?
Right. Because I was like, yeah, don't play with me because it's like, okay, we were just talking about this. And the thing is with these movies, they do come out like 2 weeks. One has came out like a month early, 2 weeks early, or a week. This one came out like just the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And people, I mean, they pretty much wrote this universe off
Mm-hmm.
because of how lackluster and it started. Because here's the overall thing: the Tomorrowverse is lacking,
Mm-hmm.
but we really can't blame the create. No, they take some blame, but
Some blame, not all of it, based on what Sam Liu told me the last time he was on.
exactly, they can't take all of the blame because with the budgets and how it's been hacked, um,
Mm-hmm.
so they do what they can. But with this verse, first you have the Tuckerverse. I call it the Tuckerverse with the New 52, um, starting
At
to
first.
yeah, and they started off pretty okay, with adapting Justice League Origins. Then you have with Justice League War. Then you have
Throne.
Throne of Atlantis, which is a good Aquaman crossover, and you have Clark and Diana is basically like the sub romance. The main romance I think of Tuckerverse was weirdly Damien and Raven,
Mm-hmm.
but you had Damien and Raven as a couple. You had Nightwing and Starfire, Superman and Wonder Woman, and Batman and Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those were your main, and Aquaman and Mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Those were your main relationships within that verse. So in every those relationships balanced out. They had their own screen time, and and that was cool. But then with Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship, it could have been a little bit better, of course, like everything else.
We could have
But
actually gotten a movie.
yeah, and you can see, but still the development though was gradual,
Mhm.
and they were becoming serious. Like Justice League versus Teen Titans, when Diana says that Clark, you can always share your burdens with me, and
I love
you
that.
know, and the fact
I
that
also
she,
love I love the scene where they come out of the theater and she's complaining about the movie, and it's like
yeah,
the woman only existed to be the motivation for the leading man. But all in all, I found the experience quite enjoyable.
yeah, and honestly, that was a dig at Lois because to say,
That is so true. I never noticed that. Oh God, that's awesome.
so so we have, and then she said that she loved the glasses. She loved
Mhm.
the they it became like a playful thing that, you can't recognize me, and whatever. So then all of a sudden, after the Justice League Dark movie,
They're
they've
broken
broken up
up,
off
and it's like,
screen.
and not only that, they've been broken up for a long time for Clark to get very serious with Lois, and again, I say this again, the identity reveal makes no sense because I'm pretty sure if they've been dating for that long, she has seen him without his glasses on.
Yeah, none of it makes sense at all. That the whole identity reveal, yeah, really, has she not seen him without the glasses?
At
Have
least in
is
the
so
Reeve
many
movie,
questions.
he did something like his hand fell into a fireplace. He reheated her coffee. So there's something there. He did stuff. He didn't just stare at her and say, "I'm Superman."
Yeah, that whole thing just was not. First of all, there was no transition whatsoever. There was no indication of a breakup. It just was done off screen. And then, of course, Tomasi,
Oh God.
the reason why they broke up was because Diana didn't want to, she called it a masquerade, which again, it really did a 180 on their character. She would never call a secret identity a masquerade. It's
And she seemed like she was embracing it in literally the previous movie.
exactly. She bought glasses. Come on now.
Hmm.
Um, and glasses aren't cheap. I mean, regardless
Hmm.
of being a princess, it's not cheap.
Hmm.
So, um, yeah. And then they say it was nice, and they belittle it as if they were just like together, I don't know, maybe 6 months to a year or something like that. But it seemed like it was much longer.
Hmm.
Then you have him, yeah, really serious about Lois just in one movie where it's like, where did it all come from? And you were supposed to accept that this is the end all be all, and no development whatsoever. It's just they are together. And like I said, it's expected. And to say that I love you thing is just kind of like, she didn't know your identity. You've been, not intentionally, but been deceptive. There was
Hmm.
no trust in that relationship at all
Exactly.
because he's kept his a part of himself from her, his identity, and that's something that you do not do. That's not the foundation of a relationship. Clark and Diana's relationship is founded on trust and honesty
Yeah,
and
here's the
understanding.
thing, and that's what he learns from her in the Charles Sewell book because yeah, one of the and a credit to Charles Sewell again in volume 1, he makes it a part of Diana doubting if she can go through with this because she's like he's so used to keeping secrets from people and I can't do that. That's not who I am. But I think she learns that it's not that simple and he does it for a reason. And even he learns to be more like social and open with her, which is why it works so well. So let's rewind a little bit for the scene. What set this up? So first you had Justice Society World War II. By the way, fun fact: the voice actress for Wonder Woman in the Tomorrowverse is the same one who voiced Talia in the Batman Arkham games.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so, it's not actually in the family. So in this one, she didn't know he was Superman yet. They just called him Shakespeare. He was their war correspondent who would like write off their activities as, oh yeah, U.S. troops liberated this town, not an army of superheroes. So, and I love this. So Flash comes into this Earth. At first he thought it was the past, but so he shows up and they find Shakespeare, and apparently he gets like shot by a German guard, but the bullet just grazes off him. And they're like, "You're Superman." And he goes, "Super what?" And then it's like he
Yeah.
explains something happened that killed Jonathan and Martha Kent, and he just went from foster home to foster home.
Yeah, so he was a little bit more reluctant and basically to himself until Diana inspired him. That, and he says it. He says that I was told not to sit on the sidelines when he knew that he could be, needed. And we can also rewind a little bit more to the beginning of the Tomorrowverse. Is that Tuckerverse? Basically, the end of that, they ruined the relationship for Superman and Wonder Woman. Even though it was New 52, they backpedaled to pre New 52, a post crisis, with the Death of Superman movie, which really didn't even have to occur. They just wanted it to, I think, again with the whole synergy of when BVS was coming out, because they was doing the whole doomsday thing, so they wanted.
But again, if they wanted that, they could have just done Doomed. It's an actual New 52 story.
Right. But Tucker, he is still post-crisis fan. He even wanted to, even though it was New 52 and they had a solid relationship, he still wanted to even adapt Action Comics 600 for them to be like, no, this doesn't work for us or whatever like that. So he was basically hell-bent on ruining the relationship in the first place. So he was kind of peeved that he couldn't do that, which is kind of like, you can be peeved, but we as fans didn't have to see that. So,
and here's the thing, I could care less if he was peeved, because I am in a way indirectly paying your paycheck. So
right. And so when he was questioned, he was peeved on that. It was like, why did Clark and Diana break up off screen? Why did you break them up? Because it's like, it doesn't make sense. And he admitted that the conversation in Reign of Superman of Diana trying to be friends with Lois and saying that they Clark loves Lois, or but her and Cal has a special bond.
It's kind of like the dialogue in your favorite Superman story, Immortal Beloved.
Oh, I hate that story. Well, yeah, that whole thing, and how just using Diana as a mouthpiece, he admitted it, that for fans to accept the Lois relationship and like Lois as a character. It's like, no, because you ruined Diana. First, you had Clark be 180, just a donkey to Diana. Like, he didn't even care for her in the movie, and he was solely caring for Lois. No, you don't do that. Especially when Lois has nothing. How Diana said that he can share his burdens with her. He, in the Death of Superman movie, he tells Lois that she's the one that knows him better than anyone. And it's like, how, when she doesn't even know your identity?
Yeah, when she clearly doesn't, because guys, I guarantee you she's seen you without your glasses on, dude, and she didn't put together your Superman.
Yeah, so it was all contrived, but of course, you have to accept it because it's Lois and Clark, and she's the default love interest, and it's what Tomasi said. is this is what you're supposed to love and accept. So,
And I'm like, no, that's not how this works. You don't get to tell me what to like. I decide that, and then I purchase it. That's kind of the way commerce works from a customer perspective.
right. So then Reign of Superman and Superman, that movie didn't do too well as the first one. So what they did was they combined them as like a one whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that movie didn't do too well and it wasn't that good anyway. I mean, Death of Superman wasn't good either with its contrivances, but and then they had Bloodlines. And Bloodlines is so
Oh God.
terrible, which it was basically trying to be Wonder Woman's Hush, but also piggyback off of the first movie, Wonder Woman.
And Rebirth, because you can definitely see the Rebirth
Yeah,
conversation in the jet, and I'm like, that movie just firmly established my hatred of Steve Trevor, like utter
yeah,
hatred. It's not as much as my hatred of Lois. I want to be clear on that, but it's getting there.
yeah, because they're trying to basically notice how Clark and Diana's relationship is never about anyone else. It's about them.
Mm-hmm.
But with trying to prop up Lois and Steve, they always have to throw Clark or Diana under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Or even Lena has to be thrown on the bus. With
Yeah.
Diana, any other people have to be thrown under the bus to prop up Lois and Steve and their prominence or whatever, or the reason why they are the best to be in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that movie failed. It I think it only did like 1 million maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And of course isn't the
Big
budget like
surprise.
only 2 million. So um he doesn't even acknowledge the movie. And when
Mm-hmm.
you can see in his bio, he probably has changed it, but yeah, in his on Twitter, he had Justice League the Apocalypse movie. Is it not
Justice League
Apocalypse?
Dark Apocalypse War.
Yeah, that he had that movie in his bio, and I'm like, I know Wonder Woman Bloodlines. And the thing is, Tucker actually he admitted to that the Superman movies, solo movies, weren't doing good. So that's why they had never done a Superman animated movie
Mm-hmm.
anymore. So Death of Superman, they know that the storyline sells, but also they use the Justice League, the the main seven to prop up that movie too.
Mm-hmm.
And he did say something about, well, like I said, he did say something about like he wanted the post crisis because that's what he used to. So he wanted Lois and Steve and to adapt Action Comics 600, which again it didn't make any sense. And peeved, just like Tomasi with Rebirth, they were told to wrap up the universe, that, it was over, and basically being booted off.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided with the Apocalypse War to kill off the whole verse. Everyone gets turned into whatever. And yeah, it's just a terrible ending of a verse that could have brought something new.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's so then when they reboot it, they go to the Tomorrowverse, which is named after the first movie, Man of Tomorrow, Superman.
Which was not that bad, honestly.
It was average. I mean, is really just the basic of Superman.
But I will say, props to them for not automatically putting Lois and Clark together.
So, and with that, they were not romantically linked at all.
Mm-hmm.
Lois
It seemed the
is,
most like the New 52, where they were just friends.
yeah, or just like rival. I think Clark was the intern though.
He was the
So
intern. She was the intern that became a full-on reporter because she took down Lex. But then it's like when she shows up to comfort him, she literally tries to steal his story.
his story, right? So in that movie, and with the commentary of that movie, they tried to make it seem like it was going to be a romance, and they used that very scene and kind of take it out of context
Mm-hmm.
to put it in a way of like they are like Lois is there for him and stuff like that. It's like when you watch the scene, it seems like she's trying to give him advice, but then there it is that she was actually being manipulative and trying to steal his story.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end, I guess um they it's more like an antagonistic type thing, or just just that ending. No, but still no romantic feelings or um indicated at all.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go to the JSA movie, and like you said, Wonder Woman is the lead, and she you have Shakespeare, who is actually Clark, and Steve. Steve is there. He's the boyfriend or whatever. Well, he claims himself to be the boyfriend.
Yeah.
Diana is, she's standoffish, you know. Her and Steve don't really even have too much of romance, romantic scenes in that movie either.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's pretty much golden age. You know how he tried to get Diana to marry him, and um she rejects him.
Which makes
But
sense because this is a World War II movie.
right, and so she only really shows emotions for him when he dies.
Mm-hmm.
And even like a few seconds before realizing, well, before he calls out for her, she is basically smiling at Shakespeare. Um, so
And
he
I will
dies.
say what was kind of cool in the scene where Superman shows up is that he's not flying, he's like jumping because original Superman
Leaping.
couldn't fly. So I really
Right.
liked that little homage they did there.
Yeah, that was really good. So then we jump to, I think, the Green Lantern movie.
Yeah, the Green
And
Lantern, they were only mentioned because it was they try to make it a hard traveling heroes movie, but Hal's not in the movie as the lead, so that kind of didn't work.
right. So within that, JSA is Earth 2. So
Hmm.
we are back on Earth 1, which is where the Green Lantern movie takes place. And in a kind of like a pass line or whatever, just a throwaway line. It Someone says Superman and Wonder Woman are out on a mission. So it's just a mention. You don't see Earth 1 Wonder Woman at all. You know who Earth 1 Superman is. And in between here, from Man of Tomorrow and now this Green Lantern movie, the Justice League has formed.
Hmm.
Which is, it's like the difference is with with the Tuckerverse, the New 52 Justice League, they formed organically and you saw them being formed. And with
Yeah,
this, it's kind of
with
like
this, you kind of never did.
yeah, until the
Crisis,
Crisis movie,
which
which
is interesting
basically
though.
it's interesting, but they're trying to fill in the blanks, and you really don't have any type of investment with these characters because uh, you don't see it in real time. It's either the characters are talking about it or you see it, but it's kind of like, no, that doesn't seem right. Especially after seeing Martian Manhunter and Hal Jordan kick the bucket.
Well, speaking of that, Then we get to War World, which this was a scene. So what happens is, and this is one of the weirdest movies because it's like it has three. It starts off with three basic kind of like showcases, like how DC has those three showcase shorts things that they do all the time. The problem with it is that they're supposed to all link together, and then the last one is where these versions of Clark, Diana, and Bruce come from. My problem with that is that it renders the previous two shorts useless. So I'm like, why was I watching this? But regardless, they get out of the simulation, and it's basically like the Matrix. And then they're
Yeah.
dressing. They're dressing. What's kind of funny if you notice. So Wonder Woman puts on her armor. She goes, "I like it." And then Superman from the background goes, "Me too."
Yeah, it it that really gives like a double meaning. So you don't know if he's saying he likes his own armor, me too, or he likes her and her armor, me too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, within this movie, you have the first two stories of Diana. She's like this mysterious cowgirl, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And yeah, it was pointless. I don't know why. Why should we care? Except for her being in a cool cowgirl outfit. Um, then you have Barbarian Batman. Still, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Honestly, it should have just been the um the mysterious detective
Mm-hmm.
setting, the black and white. That actually was far more interesting and should have been with all of them.
Yeah,
It,
because what I always said, what they could have done is made the entire movie that, and then like expand the whole actual War World
well,
parts.
exactly. So we come to this part where, and you can tell that this Earth One Clark is a little, he does act like a rookie in a sense. There's a scene when they are leaving the diner and he gets attacked and he doesn't know what to do. So Diana, of course, she has her warrior fire type instincts and she's fighting off the um they aren't parademons. I don't know what they are, but the monster things or whatever. And she goes to save Clark. Then he says, how he's impressed, and he asks her how does she did that, and she says, I don't know. It's just like, you know, um something in mind. So they go to I guess they wake up or something, or they end up at the place,
Mm-hmm.
and
Actually, what happens is that so the way they get out is that they're being chased by Martians in the dream, but then they
yeah,
drive and then
Martians.
they end. Oh yeah, because it's white Martians, so they go through this portal and then they end up on War World.
That's right. That's right. It was kind of confusing. You know, so
That's the
yeah.
other problem with the movie is it is a little confusing.
So they go through the portal, and now it's not black and white. They are colorized now, and they see Martian Manhunter, and they say that they are having memories or hears a sound in their heads, and it was him calling for them. And so they are trying to find their way back home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so now we're up to this point of them changing into their superhero attire, and when Diana turns around, she recognizes the S, and she is very happy. And this is the most uh, expression and emotion that this Diana has shown. Like I said, with
Mm-hmm.
Steve, she was very standoffish a little bit. The, the emotion she only showed really was crying because he died. And
Mm-hmm.
that pretty much was a plot device for Barry and Iris, for Barry to, have the ring to propose to Iris and setting up them getting married. So you have Diana, she says it's you. I didn't recognize you before. Mind you, she does not know a Batman apparently. Um she doesn't recognize Batman at all,
Probably there wasn't a Batman on Earth 2, maybe.
which again, when we talk about Crisis, is another plot hole. So she Clark says that he doesn't remember anything, which again, he's very much a rookie. So that's probably why they call him Superboy, because
We'll talk about that later, but that is absolutely hilarious.
yeah, so she says that she remembers Superman, and she puts her hand on his chest very intimately, touching the
I
S.
told you when you sent me that, when we were talking about this over before this movie came out, we were like, "Oh, she does that. That is very. There's no way that's platonic."
Right. And then she says, when she sees his face, though, she says, "You're just a baby. Like, you're younger." And she says that you're much too young to be my Clark. And my Clark is emphasized too. So, there's we didn't really expect so much of a follow-up to this. And, she just says my
No.
Clark. So we're thinking, again, it's a double meaning. It could be
Mhm.
my Clark, as in, like
My
how
world.
Diana, yeah, my world's Clark, or like how Diana is, she does say my Cal, my Clark. She does say that in a platonic, but it can also be romantic type, like she did in New Frontier. She
Mhm.
called him my Cal, even though they were friends, shared a kiss, but it was, that kind of thing. So, it is what it is with that. And you get the crisis tease. So that
Mm.
scene, it wasn't so much of like I said, we didn't expect anything. You did kind of have that very noticeable um chest touch, and that seemed very intimate, but again, we didn't expect anything. So we come to Crisis. And again, not expecting anything. With the previews, the trailer, you see Earth One Clark with Earth One Lois, and it's kind of like they did not build up this relationship, so why are they together? How are they together? And within this scene, you have Earth Earth 2 Clark is finally revealed, and he's talking to someone. And then he spots Earth 2, or this Wonder Woman. They come together, and he says, "Are you a sight
Aren't
for
you a
sore
sight for
eyes?"
sore eyes? Yeah, exactly.
And she smiles at him, caresses his cheek, and goes in for a kiss.
And
And it's kind of
I
like
freaking love the gray eyes.
Diana with gray eyes, silver eyes is so unique, especially because it symbolizes Athena.
Hmm.
So I would definitely really to get her away from um the norm or whatever of characters having the black hair and blue eyes, have her, if she black hair and silver eyes, and it's very distinctive. And I also like her accent too. You know,
Yeah, it's really good. You know that they did this for synergy with the movie, but this is the one case because I always think Wonder Woman should have an accent considering she's basically from Greece.
yeah, that is why I really I don't I know that a lot of people say that they hear Susan Eisenberg voice in their head for Diana. And that's because they grew up on her. But it's too Americanized.
Yeah, that was the problem. It's like whenever I hear like Diana, by the way, it's been a lot of the times this right now recently because I've been rewatching these movies, but a lot of times it's just Godot because I think it's like it's more realistic that Diana would have an accent instead of like this totally unbroken American accent. And here's the thing, in their defense, even Hippolyta had an American accent.
Yeah, and I think uh who was it? It was for the new 52, um Rosaria.
Mm-hmm.
She
Rosario
did
Dawson.
pretty she did pretty good with Diana's voice because it had like this deep, a little sultry type voice.
She kind of gave it a little bit of an accent.
Yeah, she gave her an accent, but it was also kind of like this very, not some, yeah, it's a little seductive, like,
Mm-hmm.
exotic type
You might not
voice.
recognize me. And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
At
and
that moment, Clark's on the phone and he's like, baseball, cold showers.
and you can tell that she has like this, like you said, she has an accent, and that is what Diana needs. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really want the American type accent anymore.
Because it doesn't work. That's the thing.
It really doesn't, because with her, I mean, if you want to, um, I guess, differentiate her from other characters, she has
That's
to
the
have
right way to do it.
something. She has to have something unique,
Mm-hmm.
and her voice is really. I mean, of course, her having the accent is kind of like, it's so distinctive where the secret identity more or less cannot work.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's still just the fact of her having this accent. You know that she isn't, just like just a regular character. And the more representation Diana has, is really emphasize, you know, the purpose of her character.
Well, not only that, here's the thing. I was recently rereading some some Phil Jimenez Wonder Woman, and I was doing the arc when Lois spends a day with Wonder Woman. And here's the thing about it: Lois says she has an accent.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like,
It,
it's fine if you hear Susan Eisenberg, but I'm just saying all indicators, all official indicators, are telling me she has an accent.
yeah. So, and the thing is, Diana also, she speaks in a very poetic manner too.
Mm-hmm.
And also, she, not so much as the fish out of water, like she doesn't know, but she like, her terminology for things, especially describing things or something like that, is very unique.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be something so simple, but she uses it as, like, she more defines it in more details within how she speaks. So to have her, like, speaking Americanized and as just like a regular woman, no, that's not how you do the character at all.
Yeah.
So for them to emphasize her accent on these, on Tuckerverse and Tomorrowverse, that was cool.
And so then we get the kiss. Now the kiss leaks, and to say Twitter had a fit would be an understatement to the word fit. So I made this special slide. I put a lot of work into this. Yeah. So they accuse Superman of being adulterous, which makes no sense considering. Okay, so the story of this Superman is somewhere between Justice Society and Crisis. He was with Lois Lane, and they were together. She died of old age, and then he got with Wonder Woman, obviously after a period of mourning. Which, okay, that's fine. Granted, it's more off-screen stuff, but they didn't get anything else to like work with. So I'm like, I'm willing to like to look past that. So that gets with the whole adultery thing, but the adultery thing comes from the other story that ruins SuperWonder is Immortal Beloved, where Clark is like, oh, it'll always only be Lois, and I'm like, what the heck? It does.
You know,
It's the most stupidest thing in the world.
the thing is with this first, yeah, let's talk about that. Lois, Earth 2 Lois, lived and died off screen. That is an insult. And I don't even like her character, but dang, like that is pretty much showing how much of a background character you are and a plot device, and just that's your sole role
Because
is
when you
to
think
be a
about it,
love interest.
they could have just made it where he wasn't with Lois; he was with Diana the whole time.
And that pretty much would have made sense because they actually had that, in a sense, built up from the JSA movie. They weren't actually together, no, but it still was that very first hint of them having a something. And it was enough that Steve died. So it's kind of like, of course, Diana, she would have her own time of mourning. So, maybe she wasn't ready for a relationship, whatever. So he met Lois, but still, for us to have to fill in the blanks, that is awful. And again, it doesn't really make sense. So, yeah, for him to have to, for Lois to have to die again, and then he gets with Diana, even though they have, like I said, they've been hinting at it from the JSA movie, it doesn't make sense. And
Exactly, and but it's the adultery thing that I'm really pissed off about because she's dead at this point. It's not.
yeah,
It's not a. It would be adultery if he were alive and she was with Wonder Woman. If she were alive, married to Superman, but he was still with Wonder Woman.
the thing is with Immortal Beloved, what that story was, it was just like how James Tucker hell bent on adapting Action Comics 600 to say that Clark and Diana are from different worlds and, not on the same level, whatever. That is basically what Immortal Beloved is that Clark has to be like, Lois is the end all be all, romance, no one else. He becomes a recluse, he lives, if she dies, he lives alone, forever. And that's really because some writers have like this, they have their own preference. So of course their biasness is going to come out. And that was basically what that was. And of course it was written by Joe Kelly. So he was also pushing a little bit of Wonder Bat. So that
Oh,
kind of
good
gave a,
God.
yeah. So honestly, you can see the pattern that anytime a writer screws over Clark and Diana's relationship, whether it is even just them being friends, it has some type of ulterior, motive behind it of whether they are a Lois fan or they are a Wonder Bat fan. That's just what the two options you
I feel
have.
like I'm Captain Kirk and Wonderbat is my con. I'm gonna start screaming Wonderbat.
But
That's what I feel like. Mhm.
yeah, so the adult uh story with Immortal Beloved, yeah, that sort of wrote Kelly wrote himself in a corner because he set it up to where Clark, he was um basically he admitted to trusting Diana and being more open to her than Lois, that he can talk to her. And throughout the story of them being lost on Asgard for 1,000 years, he started developing his feelings more for Diana. He started forgetting about Lois. He said he couldn't even, I think he said he couldn't even picture her face.
Mhm.
He, you know, but he was
All he
with
could
Diana.
smell was Diana at that point.
Yeah, he can, and with being so close to Diana, he was starting to catch feelings for her, or he already had them. It was just he was already starting to, he himself wanting to act on them. So it wasn't that, and I don't like it when they say that Diana pushed herself on him because she didn't. Diana was reactionary to how he was feeling. So if he wanted to act on his feelings, she was acting on her feelings too. That's how it goes. It's always more than likely, unless it's some type of writer like that, it's mutual between them. Diana never pushes herself on him. Not like how Tom King had her
Push
purposely be
herself
a
on
temptress.
Batman. Yeah,
Yeah,
a story that he, by the way, copied from Joe Kelly. But anyway,
exactly.
so they
So,
call the other thing they call Super Wonder is lazy, and I'm like, and wait, and Lois isn't lazy.
yeah, and the fact that Dan the DO actually said that they're lazy and
I
you know,
freaking love Dan DiDio. Jeez.
so it's kind of like, yeah, honestly, any type of narrative they want to push against Superman and Wonder Woman's relationship, it applies so much stronger to any other relationship, especially Lois and Clark's. The the dysfunction, the laziness, the predictableness, the the obviousness is very much them because you know that Lois isn't going to actually die. Clark is going to save her. You know it's going to be like this happy ending type thing of yeah, just the cliche of a hero and a civilian relationship. They're married already, so it's kind of like you're stuck stagnant with this marriage that really doesn't do anything. Like it's just all it does is close off other like Clark from being a bachelor, but yeah, the marriage is just there. And even with having John is an irrelevant character now. Um, and he's off on his own thing, but even that doesn't really that hasn't saved the marriage from being as bland as it is. And the twins that Philip Johnson Kennedy he introduced. Lois was not a adoptive Martha 2.0 to them at all.
Mhm.
You never actually see her be a mother, not even to John. I think Tomasi tried to have moments, but it still wasn't enough to actually show her as a mother. And even with the twins, Kara was the one that, talked to them, that
She
comforted
read them
them.
stories from
Yeah,
like of their house, which I thought that was pretty cool. I like that. And then you have the number one red flag where I draw the line attacking the character of the creatives that worked on this movie, but that's nothing new because again, they attacked Charles Soule, they attacked Jen Bartel, who never once has professed any love of SuperWonder. All she said was, "I got hired to draw a freaking image."
Right. But they feel like they can bully the creators because they have done it so much and DC has caved to them that they think
Mm-hmm.
that they can do so. They can bully and they actually do um kind of like praise themselves or boast about bullying,
Mm-hmm.
online. And it's insane because you bully and you do all this, but look at the position that WB and DC is in, where they are basically broke and don't have any type of strong revenue coming in to make these movies better. They're just on a cheap budget and they keep slashing it to the point where honestly, I don't even know how would they even like if James Gunn wants to have animation, where is the money coming from to, you know, back that up
I
to
know
not seem so
he
cheap?
makes all these promises, but I don't think he really understands the resources available to him. He doesn't. The other thing that was kind of interesting before I get to the actually, I'll do one more. So he gets this funny point where on DC social media they refer to him as Superboy, the Tomorrowverse, which kind of indicates to me they're saying apparently one only becomes Superman when he's with Wonder Woman, but beyond that, isn't it kind of funny? I saw one other Twitter reaction I want to say is they're like, what if they actually put them together in the DCU? And I'm like, and someone was like, well, they wouldn't because they screen tested Lois and Superman together. And I'm like, that doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna always stay together, though.
Not even that, but even just a chemistry test is I think uh Sasha
Hmm.
um for Supergirl,
Hmm.
and she did a chemistry test with Isra.
Yeah, that
So
doesn't necessarily mean the romantic chemistry.
right, that no, that doesn't mean that at all. Even Gal, she did
Hmm.
a chemistry test with Affleck. I
Hmm.
mean, they were not, even though Snyder wanted them to flirt a little bit, but it still wasn't
Yeah,
a
they were
full-blown
not going to be
romance.
together. I want to
Yeah,
clarify that. In no way was that Snyder's plan.
yeah. So a chemistry test does not solely mean romance at all. It doesn't mean that. But yeah, with when I saw that, that was actually funny because he does act, Earth One Superman does really still act like a rookie.
Hmm.
Um, I think even with the announcement of the Justice League within the flashback or whatever of Flash, he had Barry m- like more so talk
Yeah,
and
that was kind of
announce,
weird. He had everyone look to Barry, and I'm like, you're promoting yourself as the leader of the Justice League.
but yet you have Flash talking. Is yeah, so and again, still this movie and this verse is very rushed and just like I said, everything, every type of development they could think of, whatever, is done totally off screen, and it's you really don't get invested in this verse or the characters. Um, I mean, with Diana, you can because you have seen her. Um, but anyone else, I don't know, you just really don't care for it. Um, with Batman. So here's another thing with Crisis is I think Helena and Dick Grayson are from Earth 2 as well. And Batman was introduced on Earth too, but he died apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay, that
all
makes
her,
sense.
yeah, and Helena Wayne is now Huntress. But you see visibly Our Man and Black Canary, very old and wrinkled.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a scene also where Clark says that he's not immortal and that one day, but Diana is, and that one
How do
day
you
he,
know that, by the way?
honestly, yeah, that is a question
How does Superman know that?
because he gets his powers from the sun. And it's like the
Unless that
more,
sun turns red, you're immortal, dude.
yeah, but I think that again with the either whether it's his aging slower, slowly or whatever, I think with trying to have him age with Lois is why he is in that line of thinking that he's not immortal
Mm-hmm.
because of so many writers have tried to um have that notion that he ages with Lois.
I guess.
And yeah, and another thing is how I want to bring up is when they talk about the immortality or whatever, but like how he had Tom King had him have the immortal juice for Lois to um
Oh yeah.
yeah, to live longer or for 1 billion years. I think it was, yeah, it was like 1 billion years. It's like, come on now, Tom. Um then you have DC 1 million where he puts her soul or whatever in a robot. Yeah, that's weird. But with this, he basically, yeah, he tells Earth One Superman that, or Superboy, that that Lois died a long time ago. He mourned, and yeah, he is still the Superman though that
I
apparently
also
he is
love,
supposed to
if you
be.
notice, he bears a striking resemblance to Henry Cavill.
He does.
And he even sounds like Cavill, so I'm like, that would be interesting.
Yeah, so he does now. Okay, now I can get that out of my head. Um,
You're welcome.
and yes, so here's a yeah, another example. Example number four, or that when Lois dies, he does not turn into a tyrant. He remains himself and even has Diana because she even with her loss of Steve, but he still, even with how Clark describes it, Earth 2 Clark, he says that when you lose loved ones, meaning like everyone around, Diana's been around since World War II. So obviously that means that maybe Etta has been around, um, Julia and Vanessa, any other her of her civilian supporting cast members, they've all uh died.
Hmm.
So she understands what it means and how it feels for civilians to die, and she's helping him to cope with that. So that's why he can move on. And Lois fans do not like that he moves on.
Because it
And
always has to be with Lois Lane.
which is, I mean, that's such a limiting um mindset, like
And
again,
yet they
what more can
complain, that Superman stories are the same thing over and over again.
right, but you complain that it is repeating, but at the same time, when it's something new, you rage about it.
True
So
that.
we've had, this whole week since Monday, um, because the movie leaked, so Monday, but the release was Tuesday. that just raging all week. And
It's been fun. It's been a little fun.
because the fact that first of all it's only 40 seconds.
Yeah, it's
Like
not
the
like it's
scene
like it's not like it's like 40 minutes.
is not the whole movie, it's just 40 seconds, and they are an alternate version of or another Earth. And but they admit it, saying that it doesn't matter if it's an alternate world. It's still the fact that Clark and Diana are together as a couple. They
Which that's interesting because the other thing that this incident did, it kind of made other people respect these rabid clothes people less because then they're like because any actual DC fan, like I have a buddy of mine who's more on the Chloe side, but when I told him the context around this image, around those 40 seconds, he was like, okay, that makes sense, that's totally fine. Then when I explained to him that people had issues with it, he's like, why? She's dead. It's not like he was cheating on her.
but even if she's alive, it's still kind of like they don't have to be together. The only reason why they want them together is because Lois does not have a role otherwise.
Yeah, it's
Even
true.
but even in this movie, it showed that Lois only had like 3 lines, Earth One Lois, and like I said, she was a bridesmaid or the maid of honor for Iris. But she shared no dialogue whatsoever with her Earth One Superboy. She all they did was like stand together. She had her hand on his chest or whatever, but it was still, again, you don't see this development at all.
No, you don't.
The last time you saw them, they were antagonistic towards each other, and there's no romantic connection whatsoever. So how do you go from the very first movie establishing them as no type of romance, whether it's Clark or Superman, nothing of a romance, to here where she's hanging all on him like a damsel or whatever. Then you have yeah, because it was shown, it's like it's a threat that everything has to be Lois and Clark only.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And honestly, he that's actually a great note to end it on. And it's actually very like poetic that we talked about the Christ thing in the Injustice episode because the whole Lois Lane is essential thing actually played together really well.
yeah,
But
I did.
that's yeah, so and I swear we did not plan this. It's just it happened on Monday, and of all the shows I do on Comics League, this one had to comment on it. So that's a good place to leave it. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Drop below your thoughts on Injustice, your thoughts on the scene. So, Britt, do you have any sneak peeks that you can share with us?
Okay, so well, first with going with the Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So we are about maybe 30 more followers away from 60,000.
Nice.
And yeah, honestly, I pay attention to it, but I really don't. So, especially when I know, I said that the weekend it would hit, but I was reminded by along with the raging or whatever, and the Instagram has been posted on Twitter thanks to a detractor. And they are very surprised that a Superman and Wonder Woman that, you know, 60,000 people support this fandom or this
Isn't
relationship,
it funny? Well, you know why they feel threatened by actual fans that show support for DC stuff.
because it ruins the narrative that they push, saying that Superman and Wonder Woman only have 3 fans, or something like that.
And they're a
So
minority.
yeah, so it was one that said, how can a page have 60,000, almost 60,000 followers, and it's promoting SuperWonder. And it's like, yeah, sorry to, well, not sorry for bursting your bubble, but fandoms are outside of Twitter X. You know, it's it's 8 billion people in the world. We all have our own different perspectives of things and our likes. So yeah, it is going to be plenty of fans who like Superman and Wonder Woman. And they also have this question of, why does DC keep um having Superman and Wonder Woman? Okay, yeah. This is just one example of why, because this one fan page has 60,000 people who are supporting and who will buy stuff, while while combining basically the followers that you think you have, the amount that you have is still so much more.
Yeah,
Um,
and here's the thing: we demonstrated that when you give us what we want, we show up. You guys don't.
exactly. So with that, I'm very proud that naturally we do have a platform that, regardless of the raging, and it's still going off with
Mm-hmm.
40 seconds, has caused just like a massive, like, I've said that they like basically busting arteries or whatever.
Yeah, they are.
And but I'm very proud that we are successful in showing people that this relationship has a positiveness, and that's what it represents, is being very welcoming. And that's, I want to continue that with on the fan fiction side. So I'm finishing up the first chapter of Diana's Sick story. I'm trying to uh choose a title for it, for the main story, and more of Austria. I've decided to go a different direction with her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with It's still the same story, but just a little bit more of her, not only with her animal dimensional zoo, but
Mm-hmm.
also I wanted to do more of her within the realm of the gods, because having a 2-year-old with the gods is just so much fun.
Yeah, it
So
is. It is.
yeah, so just more adventures with her with that, and then just more of slowly but surely getting the rest of the chapters of the Athens story and the Ares story, just slowly but surely getting those completed so I can have those uploaded. But my main focus, of course, is
Mhm.
ours,
Oh,
which
this is gonna be dope.
I have had a break to not be emotional, as far as the chapter one. Now, for our, you know, discussions though,
Oh, trust
and
me. I got another idea during this show, believe it or not.
oh my God, see, this is the thing. I have to have a box of tissues or, feeling very happy and excited, all the squealing and stuff like that. So you have me going through a roller coaster of emotions,
That's
but
the point.
it's very exciting. I can't wait for us to share this first chapter. I think we
It's gonna be
did
good.
very good, you know, um, and like I said, with our discussion with it, with little ideas here and there, or the dialogue that we've gone back and forth with, especially those very romantic scenes that we, created, is like I can't wait for other people to um read those and
Uh,
just
yeah, I can't wait
hopefully
to.
cry as
I
much as I
swear.
have.
By the way, yeah, I'm working on the Red Lantern scenes. That's a little tease for what we have in mind. I'm working on those. They're almost polished enough to send to you.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, so I guess I'll look forward to start crying next week, sometime next week.
Yeah. It should be ready by this coming week. Yeah. All right. And then, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. See you later.